droves, I can't resist the way it grows, all of my time.
Hey guys, it's Asha. Today's video is going to be all about how to plan a traveling trip, backpack trip, Europe trip. Not really sure what I'm going to call it at this point, but something along those lines. Obviously you guys already know what it's called. My backpacking personal tips and a little bit about my experience, what I'd recommend, tips, what not to do, mistakes of my own that you guys can learn from. If you guys want some more traveling, Europe or backpacking videos, just leave me some requests in the comments, or maybe even specific questions that you guys have that I can answer for you, because I'll be more than happy to answer those questions for you guys. I think this video is probably going to be quite long, so let's just get started. So the first thing you need to think about before you really think about anything is your budget. And I know that that seems probably a little bit obvious, but it is so important, and I think it's really important to think about your budget realistically. It's amazing to think, oh my god, I'm gonna go on this crazy 3-month trip and I'm gonna go sailing and I'm gonna stay in these amazing resorts and I'm gonna fly from here and here and here, and I want to do this amazing thing that costs like $5,000. But think about it realistically. Think about how much you're earning at the moment, when you're planning on going away, and realistically how much you're going to be able to save in that amount of time. If you are trying to save money, which I'm assuming probably a lot of you are, then I definitely would recommend going at the end of peak season, which is what I did. I went at the start of August and then all the way through to the end of October, and I personally think it was like the best idea ever to go during that time. If you're not aware, during Europe, from the start of June to the end of August is the peak season, so that's when the most people are there. That's the middle of summer, so obviously the weather's going to be the nicest, but there are a ton of tourists around. Your accommodation will be more expensive, getting around is going to be harder, you're going to be lining up longer at places to get into, like the Eiffel Tower or wherever it is that you're wanting to go. There are so many tourists. I guess I can't complain because I'm a tourist myself, but if you do kind of want to avoid that, go at the end of peak season. Accommodation is going to be a ton cheaper. You're probably going to be able to find more train tickets or plane rides. Everything is just going to be cheaper. There are going to be less people around. The only downside is that it is obviously getting a little bit colder. But what I did is I kind of tried to start and tried to go to the northern countries as early as what we could, so that we could avoid going there at the end of October when it's freezing cold. And I think it worked really well. We worked our way from the top all the way down, finished in like Italy and Greece, and in Greece, especially Santorini, end of October we were wearing like singlets and shorts and it was fine. It can be kind of hard obviously to know how much you're going to be spending over there, but to give you guys a bit of a rough estimate, I went for 3 months and I probably spent about 7,000 Australian dollars. That's not including flights. We were quite tight on our money, and I'm going to do another video all about how to save money whilst you're traveling and how to budget for a trip. Eastern Europe is a lot cheaper than other parts of Europe, so we missed out on countries like Sweden and Switzerland and Denmark, which are kind of known for being a little bit more expensive, and went to cheaper countries like Czech Republic and Hungary. Yeah. So the next thing you do also seems kind of obvious, but it is to research. Research. I would do as much research as you can, and start by, I would say, grabbing a notepad or going on your computer and opening up a document and just writing down all the places without researching anything that you know you want to go to, or that you know you want to see. So if you really want to go to Oktoberfest in Germany, then write that down. Would highly recommend that. It is so much fun. For me, I really wanted to go to the Harry Potter studios in London, so that was one of the first things I wrote down. I was like, I really want to go there. And then after that, get a map of Europe and research, look up every country, look up reviews of each country, and yeah, pretty much decide where you want to go roughly. I wouldn't plan too much. Just have a rough estimate of like, I really want to go to France, I really want to go to Germany. Yeah, you really don't have to plan a lot in advance. Just have a rough idea of the countries that you want to go to. I'll try and link some different websites in the description box that I used for like researching and stuff like that. anything I can find that I think will be useful to you guys, I'll just link down below, so make sure you have a look at that. I would definitely recommend using a website called Skyscanner for flights. I will link that down below as well. We booked our tickets through Skyscanner, and from Australia to Paris, Paris back to Australia, so return flights, we paid $1,300 Australian, which is pretty good from what I've heard of other people paying. Skyscanner is a website where they get all the flights from different flight websites, where they get all the different flights from different airlines. They put it in one spot for you and they give you the cheapest flights. If you're from Australia, another tip I have for you guys is to use a website called Scoot. I didn't use it at the time, but my sister is leaving for Europe at the end of July, and she booked tickets through Scoot from the Gold Coast to Singapore, and I think they cost her $180, which is really good. Like, you can pay $180 to fly from Brisbane to Sydney. And then she booked her return flights from Singapore to Europe, and she just so happened to be flying into and out of Paris as well, and she paid all up I think maybe $1,100, and she doesn't have crazy stopovers like I do. Yeah, definitely would recommend looking straight from Singapore to anywhere in the world that you want to go, because Singapore's kind of the hub of the world when it comes to flights. Well, it's one of the hubs, and you can get pretty cheap flights from there to go anywhere that you want to go. I booked about 3 months in advance my flights, and May booked about 6 months in advance. So probably like 6 months in advance is where you're going to get the cheapest flights to go where you want to go, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Accommodation. So for accommodation, I am all for 100% hostels. I love hostels. Seriously, if I won the lottery, I would still stay in hostels. They're amazing. You meet so many people. They have so many activities for you. The websites I used whilst I was overseas were Hostel Bookers and Hostel World. You can get an app on your phone and you just search in wherever you want to go, and it comes up with all of the hostels. We try to stay in like the cheaper ones, but if you do have a little bit more of a flexible budget, then you can look at the more expensive ones. And I did go to a couple of the more high-end ones. Whilst I was in Portugal, we were staying in a hostel that was connected with 3 hostels. They were all connected together. We were staying in the cheapest one because we were on a tight budget, but we went and saw the other 2 hostels, and they were honestly amazing. They did like pub crawls through all of the hostels. They got everybody together. They had like bar nights, they had like barbecue nights. They're seriously amazing. Once you get to the hostel, the people at the front counter will give you a map. They'll tell you exactly what you need to do in that city, exactly where the shopping center is, exactly where the train station is, everything. It's amazing. I'm going to link some of my favorite hostels in the description box as well. Wow, the description box is going to be crazy full today, but it'll be worth it. Make sure you check the links down there because I think they'll be really, really useful for you guys. One tip I have is to look at the location. We didn't do this for a couple of places, and I seriously wish that we had. Location makes such a difference. If your hostel is in like the middle of the city where you can just walk straight out, walk to where you want to go, it will make such a difference. We got to a couple of our hostels and we were in the middle of like the ghetto, and we were just like, For example, when we stayed in Barcelona, we stayed in a hostel way out of the city. We didn't even realize it was the first hostel we'd ever stayed in, and I think our experience really was just kind of like wrecked because of the hostel. We were so far out. It was just a really weird, quirky place, and yeah, it was really weird. We had to get a train into the city every single day whenever we wanted to do anything because it literally was in the middle of nowhere. That would take us maybe like 20-25 minutes, and then we'd have to pay for tickets every single day on the train. And at the end of our stay in Barcelona, we probably could have just spent that extra money that we spent on tickets to get a nicer hostel in a better location. Maybe research in that city the transportation and how much it costs you, and then weigh that against a hostel that's in a good location to a hostel that's in not so good location. Airbnbs are really, really good, especially if you're with a massive group of people. We stayed in one Airbnb whilst we were there, and I guess it just depends on the host that you have. The host we had at the time wasn't like super helpful on telling us where to go, especially if you're in a foreign country and you're staying with people that aren't in like a hostel where they have to know English. Your host may not be able to give you a lot of information on where to go because they might not even speak your language. Also meet a lot more people in hostels. So I would go hostels, but if you do know people in the city and you're not really looking to meet people, then Airbnbs would also be a good option. Transportation. So My first thing I'm going to say about transportation is do not get a URL pass. Don't get one. It's a rip-off. Don't get one. Whilst we were over there, we didn't really meet anybody that had a URL pass, just because they're a rip-off. Even though it seems like a good deal when you're looking online, it's kind of hard to weigh up whether or not you're going to get your money's worth. And I've also heard, I could be wrong on this, but I've heard from a lot of people that they only have specific seats reserved for travelers who have a URL pass. So especially if you're going in peak season, you might miss out on even getting a seat on a train. The reserved seats for the people that have a URL pass are already taken. My tip would be just to book transportation while you're over there. It's super easy. We use a website called GoEuro.com. We just type in where we were going from and where we wanted to go from, and it will come up with all the BlaBlaCars, all the buses, all the trains, and all the flights in order of how much they were, and then we could just decide what we wanted to do. If you guys don't know what BlaBlaCar is, it's basically a car ride. It's basically a share riding website, and I don't know if I would recommend it because it's a share riding website. What people do is they post if they're going from a certain city to another city, and then you can get a lift with them, and it's way cheaper than getting buses or trains or anything. You just give them a bit of money towards the trip, and a lot of the times they'll drop you where you want to go and stuff, so that's really cool. You can meet really cool people, but there is obviously that little like who am I gonna get a lift with? I don't want to get murdered. So just be careful. I definitely wouldn't do it by yourself. I probably did it maybe like 3 or 4 times, but I always had at least 1 or 2 friends with me, and it was fine for the most part. There was one kind of creepy Italian guy, but he didn't do anything. He was just kind of weird. So yeah, just decide whether or not you want to take that risk. Just putting it out there, it can be a little bit dangerous. For the most part, we took buses. Is there a person here? They were just the cheapest option. They do take longer than most of the trains, but I didn't really mind at the time. If you book your transportation in advance, then it generally is a bit or a lot cheaper, but you don't have to go way in advance. Like you can book maybe 2 weeks in advance and that'll be enough. For flights, booking way ahead in advance is definitely the way to go. You can get super cheap flights, but only if you book in advance. And I think that's the hard thing, because for me, I would probably go with just not really going on flights unless you absolutely have to, and booking trains or buses about 2 weeks before you want to go somewhere, because that way you can be flexible with where you're going. And it really is awesome to go over there and to be like, you know what, I want to go to Portland tomorrow. Don't plan your entire trip and have all your transportation and accommodation booked for your whole trip, because you'll regret it, because you might meet people who all say that this one place in Europe is absolutely amazing and they're all going there together, and you've already booked everything so you can't go with them. It's really cool being able to go over there and be so flexible with where you're going, because Europe's such an amazing place. Everything's so close together and you have the chance to do that, so take advantage of it. My last pointer kind of contradicts the title of this video, but it is to not plan that much. And I know that kind of sounds silly, but like I was talking about, feel like I'm doing this. But like I was talking about throughout the video, you really just don't want to plan much, because being spontaneous is just amazing, and that's the awesome thing about going to Europe and having everything so close and so many different cultures just like right there, is that you can just decide to go somewhere when you want to, and it's not going to cost you that much to get there, but it's going to be amazing and awesome, and oh my god, I really want to go back. What I would say is, before you go, probably pick 3, well I guess it depends on how long you're going for, but I would say pick like 3 main things that you want to do, and then maybe roughly schedule your trip around that. So maybe you want to go to Oktoberfest, maybe you really want to go to a music festival, maybe you want to go sailing in Croatia. Pick 3 things that you're going to spend a little bit more money on, that you have like to look forward to whilst you're on your trip, and then you can kind of plan your route and like where you're going to go around those 3 things. If you guys want to see more travel videos, then make sure that you give this video a thumbs up, so that I know. I think I will definitely be doing one on how to save for a trip, and also how to save whilst you're on a trip, because personally I think that that is probably just as important as saving for your trip. You really can save a lot of money whilst you're overseas without missing out on stuff. Thanks for watching guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!
Time in droves, I can't resist the way it grows. my time.